welcome back to Thriving Thursday. I am Asadia de la Cruz, and I am your host. Every time that that I'm opening up, I'm sorry if it sounds repetitive that I say that, but I just really don't know like how else to introduce myself. So yeah. Anyways, today y'all just have me. It's literally just you and me. We haven't had an episode where it's just us. And we're 13 episodes in. So might as well have one where it's just me and you. I know you guys are used to having guests and listening to different perspectives, but today you get to just listen to me and hear me out on some things I have to share. So, first of all, I had one of the most painful experiences, not the most painful, because you'll get to hear what's been the most painful experience I've had physically. But I came home from work and I was going outside with the dogs, the two huskies, and I was throwing sticks to them. I was letting them play outside, and all of a sudden, my 4-month sweet Xylo gets up and jumps on me and pushes my legs. And in that instant, I go back. Well, in front of my house, I have two cactus plants. My left leg goes straight into the cactus plant. And immediately, as I was falling back, I got up because I felt something. I thought I got attacked by bees. I thought a porcupine shot out some of its porks to me. I didn't know what happened. And I turn around and I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just fell into a cactus plant. Mind you, my phone was inside. Ricky was at the grocery store getting asparagus and getting just some stuff I needed for dinner. And I'm like, holy cow, I cannot move my leg. And I was trying to move it, but any little pain, any little movement caused so much pain. And I was like, how am I even going to go get my phone? I can't even walk. And so I had on some dress pants and I'm pulling out my dress pants, trying to whatever, little, I don't know what they're called. What is it called? The little spikes on the cactus. I was pulling out my pant leg, trying to walk and just dragging it. And I came inside and I grabbed my phone and I called Ricky and I'm like, I just fell into the cactus plant. My leg hurts. And he had a question about if we had creamer in the fridge or not. And I'm like, I don't know. I do not know. I think we have French vanilla, but I cannot tell you right now. My leg is in pain. I can't move. And bless you, Zara. Bless you. And when he got home, I showed him my legs or my leg, and he was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. It was just a whole circle of all of those spikes from the cactus in two separate parts of my legs. And let me tell y'all, they literally, my legs still hurts. I literally just am wearing shorts because I'm I anything that touches it, it literally just causes pain in that area. It's swollen and red, but anyways, I don't know if y'all have ever fallen into a cactus plant. It's very painful and yeah, it was not fun. I was very sad that I got hurt. Anyways, that's my crazy story of the day. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started with today's episode and what I want to share. So, growing up, I mildly suffered from a skin condition called eczema. So it is hereditary. My dad had eczema when he was a baby, but he grew out of it pretty early. And so I'm assuming I got it from my dad. Hey Zara, stop. Stop. I'm assuming I got it from my dad. And I basically, for a long time, when I was little, would just scratch my arms all the time. That's where I had it. So eczema, if you don't know what eczema is, it's a dry skin condition. Now that I'm older and I had this whole episode of going to dermatologists and stuff, which I'll talk about, um, I realized that it's actually like an autoimmune disease. What it is that your autoimmune system is overreactive. So it takes a lot of things as a threat to your body. And how it tells you is it comes out in red spots of skin, which are very dry, itchy, red, um, and just very flaky. And so it can be triggered by a lot of things. It can be triggered by allergies if you have allergies to certain foods. It could be triggered by the weather that you're in. It could be triggered by stress, high levels of stress. It could be triggered from various different things. And so I went through a period where my eczema had kind of just like disappeared. I was using like steroid cream or whatever, but I just had the worst stage recently. Um, it was, gosh, I can't even say like what month or anything. I just remember I had just moved out of my parents. I was 19 and I went to go live with a best friend of mine who I had met in 8th grade, and we were together from 8th grade all the way up until senior year. Because senior year, I had changed to a different school and she moved to a different school as well. So, um, she had the same beliefs that I do or hold, and we thought it'd be a good idea, just because of situations that we were in, and the stage of life that we were in. We thought that it would be great to move in together. So we got a 1 bedroom rental like house, and we shared a room like roommates, and we had a living room and a bathroom and a small kitchen, etc. So in the beginning, it was pretty good, but living together kind of tarnished our friendship, and unfortunately, it took us to a place of hurting one another, of just not being able to see eye to eye. Um, and I don't know, you think like two girls, best friends, like it's gonna be easy peasy. But it wasn't. It was not easy peasy. I trusted her and I loved her. She did have her own boyfriend. I was dating Ricky at the time, and we had different like customs in regards to like our relationships with our partners and how often we saw them and all just different things. And they kind of, instead of us trying to figure out a way to intertwine, we were just like always hitting walls. And it was very stressful. And especially because it was hard enough that I had moved out of my dad's house. So I have divorced parents. Um, my dad remarried when I was young, to my stepmom. And so I lived with my dad and my stepmom. My mom had recently just moved back from Chicago. My mom moved away to be in Chicago for about 5 years. So that was also another change that was in my life. Um, and there was just a lot of things that was just like changing and happening. And so all of that just built up so much in me. Mind you, I was going to Grayson College, getting my associate's degree, and I was working. I think I was working full-time hours still last year. Yes, I was. Yes, because I'd get off late. So what I would do is I would go to classes in the morning and I would get off and I would go to work all evening. And so I was working full time. And working with family, which in itself can be really stressful. If you haven't worked with family, it can get kind of stressful sometimes because you know each other's personal lives, and Sometimes you don't intend to, but you kind of like walk all over each other. Anyways, whole different topic. Point is that I was just going through so much, and now looking back, I see how much it is. But in that moment, I was just like, I don't know. I guess it was just so much that I just felt like I was going through the motions. I was growing up in the same church since I was like 12. When my parents divorced, my stepmom is the pastor's daughter. So I stayed at that church, and even growing up, served on the worship team. I was a preschool Sunday teacher for like 3 years, 4 years, I think 3 years. Um, and no one talks about how hard change is. And I think that there's stages in your life where change is natural, um, but not everyone can agree with your changes. And I was in that position where the decisions I was making, the people who were closest around me didn't support my decisions or didn't agree with my decisions. And it put us in a weird spot of like, I don't know, of just like almost treating each other like strangers because of the fact that you feel like there's space between one another because of the change, if that makes sense. And one of the decisions I had made was also to step down from worship team, step down from teaching, and to leave the church. I was so scared in making that decision that I unfortunately did lie to certain people of the reason why I left the church. Um, and man, it was really hard. And like, I guess like there's just this mentality that you have to act like you're okay, and um, you like have to put a face that even though you're going through hard things, that in reality you're okay. And almost like it's not okay to not be okay. And I think I've always been one of those people who tries to be positive and tries to be optimistic, but in that time period, it was really hard. I feel like I was becoming a person who was very serious, who just didn't really have a lot of like humor. And it's because I was just so stressed. I had so many different things on my mind. Um, you know, moving out of my dad's house, living by myself with a best friend, and then our relationship kind of like falling apart. And then just my family didn't agree with Ricky at the time being my boyfriend, didn't really agree with me pursuing that relationship. And I felt bad because a lot of the decisions I was making was kind of getting defaulted to being his fault. As far as like I guess people seeing me living with my best friend is because either he told me to, or because he wants to, or because I just want freedom in my relationship. Um, and I genuinely felt bad because it was like the decisions I was making was affecting our relationship and how family felt about our relationship, which I think is something that's really important if you're in a season of making decisions of change. Um, just realizing that it really does affect the people around you. I thought that it wasn't going to affect anyone except for me. I thought that it was going to make things easier, and kind of want to make a whole episode about like being an adult and having divorced parents. It's not easy at all. And I'm the oldest of, growing up, I was the oldest of 7 kids, but 2 of them are my step siblings from my stepmom's side. And so, um, four, I'm sorry, sister, three brothers, that's four. So the 4 of my siblings come from my dad and my mom. And um, it can just be really challenging sometimes. And I thought, it would make my situation easier because I'm also a person, and I don't know if you can relate, but I couldn't say no to anyone or anything. I felt like I had to please everyone, like I had to make everyone happy. And ultimately, like, not only did that hurt me, but that ended up hurting other people. And I basically was like, this decision is going to benefit me. It's going to benefit my family. I'll be able to go visit my mom whenever I want, not feel pressure um, from any side, and go to my dad when I want to and not feel pressure from any side. I can have the siblings over, and like it seemed like everything was going to be okay. And I was making the right decisions, and I had prayed that the Lord would be the one to open doors, and it seemed like there was doors opening. I mean, me and my friend, we got stuff that was like just people were giving to us for free. And like the rental space in itself was a blessing the way it came in. And I don't know. And so I just really felt like doors were opening and that I should take the initiative of making that decision because those doors were opening. Um, and it was hard. But again, I felt like, I needed to act like everything was okay, because if I didn't, like then I was going to be judged. I was going to be judged for the decisions I did make, or I was going to be judged just for whatever reason. So instead of just opening up and sharing how I felt, I closed in and kept it between myself to myself. I would bring it up to God a lot and just ask Him, like, for direction, because clearly I felt like all the odds were against me. And so, anyways, um, all of that led to me having the worst break outbreak of eczema. Um, I didn't know what was triggering it at that time because I didn't see how big my situation was. Again, I had that tunnel vision. And so I decided to go to a dermatologist here and where I live. And they basically told me that they will do light treatments. It's not called light treatments, it has a different name, but it's basically like a light treatment for my skin. Basically, what would happen is for every other, I'm sorry, yeah, every other week, I believe it was, I would go into this box and it was full of lights, and I would stand there unclothed, and I would have sessions of that light hitting my skin. And that was supposed to help heal the eczema. By this time, I had basically a few patches on my arms, and they were pretty red and kind of just looked irritated. And I trusted that the dermatologist knew what she was doing, and I was like, all right, cool. Like, this is going to take it away. And it made it worse. Like, progressively, it just started getting worse. And I didn't have insurance, and I'm living by myself. And so I was paying like 115 a week or every other week that I went. And it was stressful. But by the grace of God, like I had enough. I never lacked in that period. Like I had enough to pay rent. I had enough to pay my phone. There was things though that I would just forget to even stay on top of. Um, and I don't know, growing up, I did grow up pretty fast. Um, but that was kind of the way like I was raised. Like I was raised to like know how to clean, and like I was supposed to like always help in the kitchen and like learn how to cook. And I don't know, I just always had responsibilities. I was paying for my own car. My dad had helped me buy the car, but I got a loan and paid my dad and paid the bank for my car. And so like I had already been taught responsibility. I started working when I was 15, to start earning money to pay for phone, pay for whatever, just little things. And so I did start working at 15 with my grandmother and my dad with the tax business that they had. So, anyways, all that to say that, like, um, I would go and I would pay like big money for these appointments and it wasn't helping. And so I don't know how many months after I did that for months. And after months of it just getting worse and not improving, I just stopped going. And it got worse. And I would wear long sleeves. I was just so insecure of how it looked. I mean, I have pictures still, but I mean, patches of red, irritated skin that was itchy and just out there felt very ugly. I felt very, I don't know, just ashamed that I even had that. And I mean, it's sad because, like, it wasn't something that was in my control. Obviously, like, no one wants to suffer with a skin condition. No one wants to suffer with depression. No one wants to suffer with anxiety. No one. And so, like, what I was struggling with, obviously, I didn't want to endure it, but like, it happened. So, anyways, it goes from just being on my arms to starting to be on my face. So then it was on my eyes, it was on my lips, it was just like just spreading. It was on my fingers. And I decided to go see a natural doctor, which a client at the tax office had gave me a card for. And I went to go see him, and he was like a natural doctor, natural medicine doctor, and it was a really scary visit. Just because like he didn't see me the way that normal doctors see you. So like basically like he like used this like old, I guess, technique to see like what's causing your sickness, I guess. And he basically told me that like I needed to take omega vitamins, I needed to take Little Elm, like it's a brand of vitamin supplements. I needed to cleanse my gut. He said that I was probably allergic to gluten and like all these things. And so I spent big money on buying all the things that he said I needed. Vitamins are not cheap. And like, yeah. And so I got all of that, and I kid y'all not, I was literally like, is this what Job felt like? Because so Job is this man that the Bible talks about, that he was a faithful servant of the Lord. And basically, long story short, Satan was like saying that he had been walking the earth to and fro. And Jesus was like, oh, like, have you seen my faithful servant Job? Like, he is a faithful man without like sin and whatever. And Satan was like, oh, but is it because you haven't given him an excuse? Because you've blessed him with so much. And Job did have a lot. Job had, he had kids, he had a farm, he had a wife, he had his own house, he had crops. And God was like, no. And like, basically, he gave permission for Satan to test Job's faith. And he could do anything except take Job's life. And ultimately, what ended up happening is Job's farm animals died. His crops were burned, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. All of his daughters and sons died, and his wife told him, "Curse the God that you serve." Um, and Job was touched with skin disease all over his body. Um, and even when his friends went to go visit him and they saw him and he told them what was happening, they told him that he must be doing something wrong. He must be sinning, and that's why God is punishing him. And like, I know that's kind of wild to relate to, but I literally felt like, I was like, man, is this what this is like probably a tiny ounce of what Joe felt like. Like, I felt like I couldn't even bend my arms. It got to a point where I could not bend my arms. I would be at work. I was at the tax office still, and my grandmother felt so bad for me, but I would like pull the cabinets like straight, like not wanting to bend my arms. And like at school, oh my goodness, uh, at the college I was at, when we had to write, I like did not want to write. Anyways, it was just getting really bad. And long story short, I tried to cut out gluten, which thank God there's a lot of products that they make now that don't have gluten, but I cut off on that and I started trying to take like all the vitamins that he had given me and like the amount he told me to take a day and all that stuff. But it just wouldn't go away. And finally I was like, all right, I need to see a different dermatologist. So I saw a dermatologist in McKinney, and she was amazing. And I had been praying this whole period, like, Lord, please heal me from this. I grew up in church, so of course they've said, like, any sickness the Lord can heal, any sickness the Lord can take away. And so I was like, Lord, like, take this away. Like, this is painful. This should not belong to me. Like, I do not want it. Um, and man, I had tried everything. Even that natural doctor told me that the water was probably damaging my skin, so I need to buy a water filter for the shower and like when I wash my hands. He had told me just like a variety of things. And so I even bought like a water filter for the shower and like was like I was doing everything that I possibly could. And I would pray about it and I'm like, God, like this hurts. Like I want this just get taken away. Like whatever is causing it, you know what's causing it. I pray that your hand's just over that and that it goes away. That's all I want. And it just wouldn't go away. And I really feel like the Lord blessed me with this doctor. So I didn't have insurance. Um, so what ended up happening is I had just started a new job working at a vitamin factory. And basically, she saw how bad my skin was. She ran some tests. I turns out I wasn't allergic to any gluten. I wasn't allergic to any like soy, milk, fish, like none of that. It was just a basic blood panel and all came back negative. So she was like, well, that's none of that. So she offered me to start trying Duplicent medication. Duplicent is like this shot that like people with eczema take or like people with psoriasis, I believe too. And it's a shot that you get and you take it like every week on the same day, every other week, something like that. I don't remember. And that's something that's really expensive, really expensive. But because of the transition of job and like insurance that I told her I was having, she told me I am allowed to give you like a trial, but I'm not supposed to like do more than this. But we can do a trial to have a sample size. It's small. We can try it, see how you like it. Well, immediately I started seeing results. It started clearing up on my face. So I had eczema all over my eyeballs. I could not wear makeup. Makeup would irritate it even more. And I honestly felt like I looked, I looked ugly. And there was times where I couldn't sleep. One of the worst times, I had went on a date with Ricky, and shout out to him for loving me through all this and dealing with just my mood swings and my insecurities. But um, he loved me regardless of looking like someone with a bad skin condition. Um, we had just went on a date to I think it was Olive Garden or Cheddar's, and I was wearing a jacket the whole time, and my grandmother and my mom were at the tax office. So I was like, all right, let's stop by, and I want to see her since they're still there, and it was still pretty early, and so went over there since we didn't have anything else to do after uh, our date, and I took off my jacket and I realized how bad my arms were. And it was like I had forgotten about it because I had my jacket on. So when I took it off and I looked at my arms, I was like, oh my Lord, this is bad. And I just began to get really itchy. But I had scratched it so much, like in my sleep, I would scratch so much that I would bleed, which would cause a lot of pain. And I remember I took it off and I was like, oh, okay. I forgot that this was there. And I literally just went to the back and I just broke down. And I'm like, I cannot live like this. Like, I can't do anything. I am insecure anywhere I go because of how it looks. And I remember Ricky went back there with me and I was just crying. And he's like, what do you need me to do? And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go buy you Benadryl. And he's sort of like researching like remedies that would help with eczema. So he goes and does that, and then I just stay with my mom, and then I go home with her. At this period, I had moved out of where I lived with my friend and moved in with my mom. Um, Basically, it boiled down to just a horrible point with her, and there was a third party included that got in between our friendship. But unfortunately, that person's voice was being, how do I say it? That person's voice was being listened to, and their opinion was being voiced, even though they weren't the one that was living with us. Um, and it was an old common friend that we both had. Um, and it got to a bad point, and I had the chance to voluntarily end our lease early and leave without any penalty, whatever. So I did it. And I moved in with my mom and my grandmother. Um, because yeah, it was bad. Um, and I don't think it helped, but that situation in itself had me feeling so down because I was so proud of what we had like done together. And then I felt like it got ruined and it just got like this. It was just gone. And I worked hard and I don't know. It felt like I sacrificed a lot to even be in that position with my friend that I trusted. And so I felt backstabbed. Um, and now everything's okay. Like me and my friend that lived together, I felt heavy on my heart to just apologize, even though I don't feel like I hurt her. To let her know that she really hurt me. Um, and I forgive her for that. This was months after it happened. It did not happen right away. And she ended up telling me that she was sorry too and that she forgave me for any hurt that I had caused her. We were just both in two different mindsets, two different visions, and it just got really hard. I mean, she had gotten engaged to her boyfriend a month into me and her living together. So, it was just a lot that was happening. A lot that was happening. And but me living at my mom's was also really stressful because my mom lived with my grandmother. And then when my siblings would go over to have my mom, it was just a full house. So I ended up sometimes going and staying with, at the time, my boyfriend, and his family. He still lived with his family, and I would stay with them sometimes. Um, and I kind of felt like I was just all over the place, and it did not make, obviously, my emotional state any easier, which was causing later on, I'd find out my physical state to just explode and outbreak in eczema. Anyways, back to what I was saying was that this dermatologist ended up giving me the Duplicent shot, and time again, she gave me sample, and she would continue to ask me about my insurance, and I'd be so close to getting it, and something would happen. And I had to wait a certain amount of days with being with that job in order to get it, but I praise the Lord for her. She was the only person who was actually able to help me. She educated me on what eczema really is, and educated me that with who I am and the stage of life I was going through, it was stress that was triggering it. And I don't think it's really like biblical, but I do think that some of our sicknesses come from what's within us. Um, And I know that stress was causing me to outbreak in eczema. But what those shots did is they calmed my autoimmune system. So my autoimmune system stopped overreacting to things that it didn't need to react to, which included stress. And in months, I was cleared. She gave me a steroid cream and stuff to obviously help with that. And she was my answer. Little does she know, she was my answer from the Lord. And oh my gosh, it was just so sweet. I remember the first time I went in and I sat down, she said, "Oh my goodness." And I was like, "Is my eczema that bad?" And she goes, "You look like Scarlett Johansson." And ever since then, she called me her Scarlett Johansson uh, customer, client, patient, whatever terminology you want to use. And it was just the sweetest thing. She's not the only one. I got that recently, even when I went to San Antonio. Um, a couple that I used to go to church with uh, used to say that I look like Scarlett Johansson too. Anyways, I don't know if I do. If you think I do, cool. Give me a thumbs up. If not, leave it alone, I guess. But anyways, she was my answer from the Lord, and she really just educated me on what exactly is eczema, and she helped me get a solution to my problem, my physical problem. And it was expensive, but again, the Lord would supply. And rather that was through people giving me money, which, you know, thank you to those people, but I didn't ask, and the Lord gave. And I truly think that, that was just because I was trying to include him in my situation and trying to rely on him to give me the answer to my prayer. And so I haven't had an outbreak since. And I have gone through a lot of change since then. And I think it's been a lot of good change, a lot of scary change. But I've been able to make sure that I take care of myself better. Obviously your mental health is like really important and your emotional health because it affects your body and your body reacts to your stress levels and it reacts to just everything. And I realized that I needed to leave a lot of things to the Lord. And I needed to stop being a person that says yes to everyone. And I need to start learning how to say no. And that I needed to stop caring about what other people thought about my decisions because I was a person that, like, any decision I made, I went to other people to get their opinion on my decision. And if they didn't think that it was okay or that it was from God or that it was whatever, then I wouldn't make it. And I had to start learning, like, I need to listen to the Father, my Heavenly Father, and then I need to make a decision. And I'm going to pay the consequence for my decisions, whether it's a good consequence or it's a bad consequence. But to stop caring so much of A, B, and C, and D, what they think and what they have to say about my decision. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, biblically speaking, there's only one judge, and he's going to be the one that judges my decisions that I've made. And if that's you, like, I just encourage you to, like, there's going to be one judge, and that's the Lord, and he is going to be the one that judges your decisions. And goodness, it's another thing. It's like when you start making decisions based on other people's stuff, then when it comes to the time where you have to make your own decisions, you don't know how to even make decisions. And that's something that's really important in life. And so, and if that's you, that you want to say yes to everyone because you feel bad if you say no and you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, you're going to end up hurt. And people say no to you, and that's okay. We have to learn how to prioritize our time, how to prioritize our things, and what to say yes to and what to say no to. And so I'm still working on it, but it's been a while since I've had eczema. And if it tries to come back, I just put steroid cream and rebuke it because it is not mine to have. Um, I am I am called to be healthy and to thrive and not to be not to be sick with a skin illness. The good thing about it was that it wasn't contagious to other people. The only way to pass it on is through genetics. So the only way to pass it on would be through kids that I have. It wouldn't be through any physical contact with anyone. However, it can spread on that individual's body. So let's just say that I were to scratch a spot on my leg and then I were to rub my eye. That's how I was spreading it, was because then it would spread to my eye. So yeah, it was a journey. But I'm so glad that I had people in my corner. There was some people that indirectly or directly, believe it or not, told me that maybe it was because of sin I was in or sin I was committing. Um, and I think that it's really wrong, first of all, for any Christian to say to another Christian. But the Lord isn't a God who punishes based on your sin. Because if that were true, we should all be dead. Because not a single one of us is perfect, and not a single one of us follows what the Bible says to the T. And so, if that were true and we were to be punished by God according to our sin, kill us all. Literally. And it goes back to the Samaritan woman, John 4, um, where they catch a woman in adultery and they bring her to the Lord and they're like, look at this woman who was found in adultery. And he looks at them and I don't know what he wrote, but he wrote something in the sand and said, let the first among you who is without sin throw the stone. And he wrote in the sand. Some people say maybe he wrote mercy, or maybe he wrote names of people that they were in adultery with. I personally believe maybe he like wrote a specific name of the sin that they were committing. Like, who are you to judge this woman who is sinning, but you yourself have sin? And they dropped their stones and they walked away because they were not able to throw a stone at her since they were not without sin. So, yeah. Sorry. But it's the truth, and the truth needs to be told, and the truth needs to be shared. Um, and at the time, I think I just dwelled so much in those things, but thank the Lord, I was able to get out of those things that kind of made me feel like, is that true? And made me doubt the Lord and made me question like things about God that I don't think I should have had to question. Because the truth of the matter is that, yes, some things the enemy does stir up. Some things we let the enemy have control over. We permit the enemy to move in certain areas of our life. But you can't make God punish you with an illness because of a sin that you commit. And we're all washed by the blood and cleansed by the blood. And he tells us that he throws our past, throws our sins deep into the sea to be forgotten about. And I just hope that that's an encouragement to you. I hope that me sharing this just inspires you that if you're going through a physical illness, a mental illness, an emotional illness, that you're not in that situation because of sin. God is not a God that punishes his children with illnesses because of things that they do. We are washed and cleansed by the blood. And if you haven't listened to last week's episode, I really highly encourage you to go listen to last week's episode with Alex. It was really good. And it opened my eyes to what happens when we take off the label of being a sinner. It helps you to walk in confidence in who you are as an individual, even if you're not a Christian. You don't need to be Christian to walk with a confidence like that. But more so when you're a Christian, it allows you to walk in confidence in Christ and as someone that's created by the Lord. We're all created by the Lord. And the Lord loves you and he cares for you and he wants to see you healthy. He wants to see you happy. And yeah, since then there's been even more change, but it has been a lot of good. And the Lord was faithful in opening doors for me. even though I doubted him and was like, well, what is my life gonna look like? I was gonna go away for college, and then I'm like, I can't leave where I'm at. I don't feel like it's gonna be appropriate, and there's so many things. But the Lord created a community around me. I was able to find that the church I'm at now and serving at now through the community that I was surrounded, the new community I was surrounded by. And I love the people that, my home church that I grew up in. I love all of them dearly. And if you're watching, I want you to know that I love you, and I'm sorry if any decisions that I made hurt you. Um, and there's been a lot of forgiveness that's had to um, dwell in me, because it's easy to get bitter towards people when you feel like they've said they're always going to be there for you, and then because of decisions you make, they decide not to. And if you're a person that's going through that, just know that as long as you're obedient to the Lord is going to be faithful to you, and He's going to reward you, and He's going to honor you. And so the most important thing is just to lay everything in the hands of the Lord. I was able to get married in August to Ricky. Probably something I'll share with you guys, because I feel like you guys would probably enjoy listening to the story and just being like, wow, I wouldn't even have thought. But me marrying Ricky itself was a huge decision that was going to be made, and with or without people's approval. Um, and it was a hard decision, but at the same time, it was an easy decision because I knew I loved him, and I knew what I felt when I prayed about him and the process of our relationship. But yeah, the moral of the story is that the Lord is faithful, and He doesn't punish you with an illness or sickness according to your sin. And to drown out the voices that you validate so much and that you put on a pedestal so high. Because when it comes down to it, the Lord's going to be the one that judges your decisions and judges your actions, no one else. So, I hope that this was an encouragement, and I'm so happy to say that I am eczema free. With the weather change recently, I've seen like a few patches try to start, and I, quickly handle it with cream and pray over it, and that it doesn't happen to me again. There, I didn't even finish telling you guys that story, which was that night that I had got back from a date with Ricky, and I went with my mom to her house. He showed up later with Benadryl and an aloe plant, and might get emotional, but um, I got to a point where, like, that night, I still have the video. I made a video in my car, and I was like, man, like, I'm suffering right now with this, but I can't imagine how the people feel who are out there that struggle with so much more than just eczema. But although I had other people that just judged me for it, or that didn't even want to help me, or that didn't care to be concerned, or people I didn't share it with because I didn't feel like being judged, I didn't feel like more people criticizing my situation. That night, he went with the aloe vera plant, and him and my mom and my grandma were in the kitchen, and I was sitting there, and I had my arms just like stretched out in front of me, and I felt helpless. I felt like I couldn't do anything for myself. It was even hard to put clothes on, and I remember like sometimes I'd get blood on my clothes because of the bleeding from scratching from it being so itchy. And they, as a team, cut open the aloe vera plant, and they put it in a bowl, and they smashed it up, and they blended it. And so cold, they put it on my arms, and I immediately felt just such relief. I immediately felt like just this coldness and this like moisture to my skin that was so dry. And it felt so good to have other people help you when you feel so helpless, and for them to do it so eagerly and so lovingly. And so another encouragement too is like, who is your community? Who are the people in your corner? that was something that the Lord kind of changed for me. But I realized how important it is to have people that are always going to be in your corner, that are going to hear you out and always are going to help you. And that it is okay to ask for help. If you're a person who's like stubborn and doesn't like to ask for help, like ask for help. If you don't ask for help and you can't do certain things yourself or you struggle to, it's going to be a lot harder to overcome whatever it is that you're battling with. And because I had people helping me and supporting me and giving me encouragement, I was able to remain hopeful, to remain prayerful. I had people praying for me all the time. I would send them text messages of people I trusted that I knew that were going to pray. Um, and it was beautiful to just watch the healing process that I went through happen. So I'm happy to say that now I sit here um, without eczema. And yeah, for some people, they may be like, you're so dramatic. Like, it was just eczema. But it'll always be a testimony for me, and it'll always be a story for me that is so much deeper than just a skin condition. Um, we need to be careful with how much we stress ourselves out. We need to be careful with the amount of decisions that we make and how we make them. Um, but I hope that overall this was encouraging to you, and I hope that you enjoyed your time with me. And I really did enjoy sitting here just talking with you guys and speaking my mind on my situation that I went through. So with that being said, have a beautiful and blessed Thursday, and stay tuned for next week, episode 14. And I can't wait to see you then.